Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today, I have in front of me Marvel's Conan the Barbarian, numbers 206, 207, and 208, also known as the Heku Trilogy. Now, I wanted to do a Conan video for a while now, and I wanted to do it on this run because this is so great. But I pulled out the wrong stuff, and I started reading it, and by the time I realized it was the wrong stuff, I just kept on wanting to read that run of Conan, even though that other one wasn't good enough to do a video on. It had some great art in it, and it had some spectacular covers, and I couldn't stop reading it. But I'm not going to do a video on the other stuff. However, because the art and the covers are so great, I figured I'm going to post at least a couple of them on my Twitter page. The link will be in the description for my Twitter page if you want to go check out this cover art for some of these Conan books. I'm going to post probably one a day for the next little while with Conan to begin with, and it's spectacular stuff and from high quality artists as well. The first one I posted already was Jim Lee, and it was a cover with Conan and Red Sonja on it. Now all I should have to say is Jim Lee, Conan, and Red Sonja, and you should be flying over to my Twitter to go see this cover if you've never seen it before, because it is beautiful stuff. And that's just the first one. I'm going to be posting other ones. There's Art Adams ones. There's a whole bunches of just beautiful cover art from Conan books, which the stories are not the most spectacular in the world. They're good if you're a Conan fan like I am, but I wouldn't be doing great runs on them. So I'm just going to post those on my Twitter page. You should go there if you like really good Conan art. Anyways, to get back to this one. Now this, again, I'm just going from memory, and I would say this is one of the best runs of Conan in all of Marvel's history. Again, there probably is better ones because I'm not remembering the entire run of Conan, and I don't have the entire runs, the early ones I don't have. And there were a lot of stuff coming out from Marvel with Conan as well. At one time, they had at least 3 Conan titles going at once. They had Conan the Barbarian, they had The Savage Sword of Conan, which is in magazine form, and they had Conan the King. And that wasn't even counting the side characters who got their own series. There was a Red Sonja series. There was also Kull the Conqueror. He had his own series as well. And there was the Marvel books that came out around the movies of Conan the Barbarian done by Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Marvel was deep into Conan at one time, and it was great. And the thing about this that is great for readers now especially is these are high quality books. They have Marvel behind them, so you can see why they're high quality. But at the same time, and even though they are technically part of Marvel continuity, they don't have things in them that you would have in normal Marvel continuity books, and therefore you don't have places where you get new characters and things like that and crossovers with other people, which normally drive the prices up for your backstock. So you can get some good runs of Conan. You can get a good stack of Conan for change, and they're great stories. So if you're looking for great stories, go look for some Conan. Go find some backstock of Conan. If you like a few, you'll like a lot of them. And you should start here just to see what Conan is like if you don't have any idea of Marvel's idea of Conan. So this story itself. Now, before I even get into the story, I want to talk about the writer and the artist because they work together beautifully in this. This is the way a writer and an artist should work together. Your writer is James Owsley, and your penciler is Val Semeiks. Now, Val Semeiks back in the day wouldn't have been one of the ones of the artists that I would have followed naturally. You know, if I saw something by George Perez or Art Adams or John Byrne, I would buy it. I wouldn't even look at what the story was inside. I would just buy it. If they were doing the art for the inside, I would buy it. So Val Semeiks wasn't one of those people, but in this 3-issue series, within a series, he has some really good supporting artists, and he and the writing team really come together well. And I say writing team because there's somebody doing the plot, and there's also someone doing plot assists. And this is one of the great things with Conan as well, is because that when you read a run of Marvel's Conan, they're always going back to older stories, taking people from old stories, you know, like a sorcerer that he defeated 100 issues ago and he's resurrected, or, you know, monsters that were there 50 issues ago and somehow they've gotten on the other side of the world. They're always referencing these old stories. And that is a sign that these writers love to write Conan. These are people who love the story that they are writing, and people who love the story that they are writing, they do right by the story. And I mean every issue there's something that connects to old issues. Even in this story itself. In this story, Conan is on the edge of the Orient. And you're looking at this art probably saying to yourself, what is this with Conan and samurai? How do we have Conan and samurai? It's because he's on the edge of the Orient. And you can read this story in itself, and it's great in itself, but if you're an actual Conan fan and have all of the issues back, you would know that this has been building up for so long, but in just tiny little ways that you, as a fan, you would really love, because Conan's been moving east for like 100 issues. And he's just slowly moving east, not for any real purpose, just because he's Conan and he moves. You know, he's a sellsword here. He's part of a militia there. He's a bodyguard here. He has an adventure troupe there because he hears about some city that has treasures in it. You know, he's just randomly moving this way. And again, this is what the writers notice, and they love to write Conan. You can tell by the writing that they love to write Conan. And when I was reading the other issues, not these issues, there was an issue where in the back on the letter page, the writer had to have a little blurb put in saying he was sorry because in his last issue, he didn't reference where these characters and these characters and these characters came from. They came from this story and this story and this story. And he knows those stories, and he wants to pay homage to those people who did those stories. And that's a great writer. That's the way a comic book writer should be. Not like the ones that you have today where they hire some YA artist who they think is going to be great just because he can write a YA story, therefore he should be able to write comic books. It doesn't work that way. Not with comic books. You got to get someone who loves the story, and who will, by their own volition, go into the backstock and just read it and absorb all the characters and know what's going on. And then the story will just flow from that person. That's what a good comic writer should be like. And not only the writer, but the artist in this, they work together so beautifully. You can tell that this writer and this artist sat down together and they said, okay, this is what we're going to do for every panel. They are not working at cross purposes to each other. There's not one guy sitting on one side of the room and another guy sitting on another side of the room doing their own part of the story, and then they just throw it together. These guys knew exactly what the other person was doing. Sometimes you got the writer telling the story, sometimes you got the artist telling the story, and there's a few panels in here that I'm going to show you, but it's not just those panels. There's a few parts of this story where the artist alone tells the story. There's no words whatsoever. I love comics where they do that, and I've seen it done in many things. I've seen it done in Iron Man. I've seen it done in X-Men. I've seen it done in Spider-Man. I've seen it done in Daredevil. You know, it can be done with any comic, but it works really well with Conan because, of course, Conan's a barbarian. And he shouldn't speak a whole lot. That's one of the problems with some of the stories in Conan is some of the writers try to put too many words in his mouth. His name is Conan the Barbarian. He's called the Savage Sword of Conan. It's in the title of the book. You shouldn't have him talk a whole lot. You know, he doesn't have to be silent during the whole thing, but at the very least, give us some just good action. And this story gives you good action. There's a couple of pages where there's just sword fight, and that's it. No words, just sword fighting. And that's Conan. That's a good Conan story. So to get into the story itself, and I don't want to give too much of the story away because it's only 3 issues. So if I give you too much, then I'll give away the whole story. But to tell you what the story is basically, and I know this is not going to be the best description in the world because I don't want to throw spoilers in there, but Conan's been moving east for the last, I don't know how many issues. I'll just say 100 because I don't remember the exact number. But it was for a long, long time within the Conan story arcs. He's moving east. And as he was moving east, he picked up this guy who became part of his party. And he had a number of people with him. But this guy basically was given to him as a slave. And he was from the Orient. We'll just call it the Orient because we're talking about long ago, before we had any kind of classification where this would be on the earth. So we'll just say East. They just say East. So they picked up this guy. He was from the East, the far East. And he became Conan's slave. But Conan didn't treat him like a slave. He treated him like a good warrior, which he was. And as they're moving east, they start to run into something which is coming out of the east, which is this giant army. Now, this giant army is what you're looking at in these pictures, some of them. Now, they look like samurai. Now, if you want to correct me in the comments and say, no, that's not what a samurai really looks like, you go right ahead. I'm just giving you what it looks like to me. So they kind of look like samurai, and they kind of act like samurai as far as I can tell, right? They have a lot of discipline, and they have really good armor and things like that, but they move like a Mongol horde because there's giant waves of these guys. And their leader is Heku, which is an old man who turns out to be the father of this slave of Conan, who became Conan's friend and part of his party. So, the story revolves around the fact that the son and the father, who is Heku, are basically in a struggle for who is going to take over control of this giant army. And Conan gets caught in the middle of it, because the son can't take over the army and basically be a king if he's still a slave to someone else. So that's how Conan gets drawn into this story. And it's basically a story about these two guys. Now, there are other supporting characters that really flush out this story, but it's basically a story about the friendship between Conan and this guy who is a slave, whose name is Kobe. And that's what drives the story along, and that's a great basis for a story. It's a friendship between these two men. And again, I'm not going to give away any more of the story than that, but it has elements of Conan, and it has elements of Far Eastern adventure. It's not the most historical Far Eastern adventure that you want. It would be something basically like what came out in the 1980s with the D&D Adventures in the Orient, and something like that. So you have all kinds of things playing into this story because they're pushing into what is basically the Middle East. So you have 3 different kinds of people in this area. So you got these guys from the Far East coming in. They're coming into the Middle East where these people already are, and the people who are there don't like that. And then you have Conan, who's just a barbarian. And I love the fact that these storytellers, they put together these little things that just seem random and end up eventually playing a part in the story. There's a part in the story, this is good storytelling, because there's a part in the story where Conan picks up this bimbo. And I know some people might not like me using that word to describe woman, but that's really what she is. She's part of a harem. She's a pampered girl who has never been anything basically but a part of a harem, and she wants some adventure. So she sees Conan, so she sneaks away and just wants to go with Conan. And Conan, in his typical I don't think about anything way, just says, yeah, whatever. He basically thinks to himself, I would say, you're going to get killed anyways, but I might have some use for you later, so I really don't care. And this little non-decision of Conan's, because he makes these kinds of non-decisions, he just goes, yeah, whatever. It really ends up biting him in the end, not so much as a plot point that will eventually end the story, but it's something that plays a major part in the story. And this, again, is great writing. This is great art. If you haven't read any Conan before and you want to start reading some Conan the Barbarian from Marvel, start here. Read this. It's only 3 issues. You can get it cheap. And it's really good stuff. And you can go from there. I'll probably do another Conan later. Probably do another Conan the Barbarian and probably a Savage Sword of Conan. I got so much of this stuff, but I'm not going to do them for a while. But start here. This is a great run of comics. All right, you got great art, you got great storytelling, you've got storytellers who want to tell this story, who want to pay homage to old stories, who know the old stories. You got an artist who's working together with the scriptwriter and the plot assistant, and everybody's pulling together in the same direction, and it works great, and it's not rushed either. You would think that only 3 issues to tell a story arc like this would be rushed. I just did a cable video, and that seemed a little bit rushed. It seemed like they were trying to put a little too much into it there. But not here. Because everybody's working together so well, and the story is told by both the script and the art, you're getting the story told to you 2 ways at once, and they can pack so much into these pages. I think that's one of the great things about comics, is that if they are done right, the story can be told to you twice in the same page. And that's why it can be told in ways that doesn't translate into other things, that only works for comic books. Anyways, this is a great run. If you want to read a great run of comics, only 3 issues, you can get them dirt cheap. Go find these Conan somewhere. It might be in a back issue lot somewhere, or you could just go online and find them. But these are great stories. So, until next time, if you liked anything you heard here, if you liked my video, please hit like, hit subscribe. Check out some of my other videos. Like I said, go to my Twitter. I don't use it a whole lot, but go there if you want to see some really good cover art. I'm going to do other kinds of cover art besides Conan sometime later, but I'm going to start with Conan. There's going to be a number of them there. That's great, great art that you'll probably never know that existed by great artists. And again, until next time, make comics better by reading better comics. And this, I can definitely say, is a better comic. All right. I'll see you later.